Hello, everyone, and welcome to another new AMP podcast. I'm Ben Dubose, news editor with AMP Publications. AMP, of course, is a shorthand acronym for the Association for Materials Protection and Performance. And both Materials Performance, or MP, and Coatings Pro Magazine are member magazines within our publications group. Today's episode is part of a special series spotlighting the winners of the 2025 MP Corrosion Innovation of the Year Awards. Every other year, the program celebrates cutting-edge technologies that are driving continued progress in corrosion control and protective materials. Today, we're featuring one of this year's standout innovations in the coatings and linings category, and that's the HeatFlex line of CUI mitigation coatings from Sherwin-Williams Protective and Marine. Joining us today are Neil Wiles and Kristen Leonard. In this episode, we're going to be looking at the development of this technology from Sherwin-Williams and the science behind the HeatFlex product line, how it all came to be, and how the technology is already making a difference out in the field. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to join me today. I want to start with introductions. I think most of our audience is probably well aware that Sherwin-Williams is one of the largest paints and coatings manufacturers on the planet. So I think a better way to go about it would be for each of you to talk about what you do at the company. Kristen, we can start with you.
Hi, Kristen Leonard. I am the North America Marketing Director for the Energy segment. I've been with Sherwin right at 4 years now, but I've been in the industry just shy of 18. My entire career so far has been in the energy segment, but I have assisted in multiple other sectors of the industry. Previously, working through a global engineering EPC firm as a non-metallic specialist, and then also at a global operator as a non-metallic subject matter expert prior to joining Sherwin.
And Kristen, you've also been involved with AMP the last few years, right? Past chair at the Global Center and then board of directors.
That's right. I am currently the immediate past chair for the AMP board of directors. My tenure will close out at the end of this year. But it's been a fun ride, and I'm still actively engaged in multiple other committees.
Sounds good. Neil, same to you. Just give us a little bit of background on your time in the industry and what you're doing now with Sherwin.
Yeah. That's Neil Wiles from the UK. I'm currently the global SME for CUI and insulation, so quite pertinent to these products that we've been winning the awards for. I've been with Sherwin for coming up 10 years next year, and I'm actually going through one big milestone next year. I would have been in the paint industry for 40 years from next year. So it's been a long road. Currently, I deal with a lot of standards committees with regards to CUI and atmospheric corrosion. So I'm part of the AMPP 21442 committee, which is where we test the CUI qualification of coatings. I also am part of the ISO 12944 committee, which I've just got off a call from, which is talking about atmospheric coatings. And I work a lot with Kristen.
Yeah, and corrosion under installation, or CUI, obviously that's a huge issue out in the field. And Neil, you mentioned that you've been in this industry for around 40 years. So you've seen a lot of trends over that time. I want to start with how the CUI mitigation line within HeatFlex, where it originated. What's the background as far as the need that this ultimately addresses? Just walk us through the origins of how this all got started and what you were seeing that drove this development.
CUI is one of the hot topics in industry at the moment. It's not just the oil and gas industries, it's power, chemical, it's anywhere where there's insulated pipe or vessels. It's such an important thing because, and I do a lot of presentations on this, because it's not just an environmental concern if something leaks from a pipe or a vessel, it's a health and safety concern because there are lots of documented cases available to view where there's been loss of life. So over the last sort of 20 odd years, there's been a growing number of joint industrial programs, industrial committees, be it AMPP, be it D&V in Norway, be it ISO, all of these standards coming forward to try and qualify and improve the linings that we use for CUI. And from a Sherwin-Williams point of view, we had technology sitting there which was doing the jobs of the last 40 years, on pipes and on vessels doing the CUI job. When I joined Sherwin-Williams, one of the things I brought to the company was to try and bring it all under the Heatflex brand, because it was all branded different types of names. And we had some gaps, and that allowed us to actually concentrate on those gaps. And those gaps have now been filled with the products that we're winning the awards with be it Heatflex 750 or even the very new Heatflex Ace. We now have products which fit into all of those categories that we need to serve. So we serve industry in all areas.
And Kristen, understanding the market is implicit in any marketing role. So in terms of shortcomings the last few years that you all were hoping to address with this, what are you ultimately trying to address as far as a market need here?
Well, if you look at the traditional specifications written over the last several decades for corrosion under insulation, the key thing that was always pointed to was the coating material needs to be immersion resistant, because they just assumed that if it's immersion resistant, something like you would use in a traditional tank lining, it would serve the purpose for CUI. After decades of failures and significant operational expenditures for maintenance and repair, it became obvious that simply saying an immersion grade coating is sufficient was no longer adequate. So understanding how the industry functions, what these things go through, cyclic service, high temperatures, all of these things that create a very specific microenvironment with corrosion under insulation. It became obvious that, to Neil's point, there were gaps, and we Sherwin were the ones that wanted to help fill that. Bringing in the AMP 21442 testing and other industry acknowledgement is where we were able to prove our technology.
So let's look at the timeline of this. And going forward, I want this to be free flowing. So if you both want to answer a given question, you certainly can. You're not required to. You can each jump in wherever you feel that your expertise would be the best fit. But just walk us through the development process and the timeline. When did this start, and what was the process in getting it to today? What were some of the big questions, the tests, the things that needed to be achieved? Just if you could take us through the commercialization process and I guess the hurdles that needed to be cleared before we could get to where we are today in 25.
Kristen, I'm going to rely upon you with the timeline for Epithen FF, because it was way before when I joined the show.
Yeah, so historic technology, as Neil mentioned, the Epithen FF, that was kind of like our Sherwin's bread and butter for under corrosion under insulation systems. And that dates back well before my time at Sherwin, but I was specifying that at my time at the engineering firm in the early 2000s, and it was available before that. So that was one of the early technologies that was utilized and did a decent job. When it came to the Heatflex line, Neil joining the company about 10 years ago, he mentioned that he noticed the gap. And then you start introducing the TM to 21442 testing. That probably started with a lot of the operators 7-8 years ago now, as far as creating a more uniform test method. So piecing all of that together, it's been a 30-year endeavor. Heatflex probably started 6 years ago, Neil.
Yeah, I would say that we really started concentrating in this area because it was one of the big areas where we believed technology wasn't really up to the job. So it was around about 4 or 5 years ago, we developed the Heatflex Ace and the Heatflex 750. The Heatflex 750 was a really big gap in the market because the incumbent products that were being sold, not just by ourselves, but by our competitors, were all pretty low solids. They were all sitting around about 65, 70% volume solids, which is pretty low for coatings these days. So the Heatflex 750 came in, and that's nearly 80%. So that broke away from the pack of the the traditional sort of coating systems. But then we actually got thinking, well, we need to future-proof these coating lines even further. So taking into account the history of Sherwin-Williams and its chemical resistance background for tank linings, we actually looked into that drawer of technology and stripped the coatings back and then developed the HeatFlex Ace, which is a solvent-free epoxy phenolic Novolac. So it's a completely different product to anything else that's on the market. And as Kristen said, around about the same time, the AMPP 21442 testing, which is the pre-qualification test, was coming around. So we added the HeatFlex Ace into that to make sure that we had the most up-to-date technology with the most up-to-date pre-qualification tests. And out of that testing, the HeatFlex Ace was the probably the top material when comparing it to thermally sprayed aluminium, because that was the whole point of the TM21442s, get a liquid coating which was got to perform under CUI conditions similar to thermally sprayed aluminium. And since then, we're concentrating on even more new technologies going forward. So it's not a case of, this is what we've got and this is where we're going. No, we're developing more and more new technologies to go further in this space.
If you can imagine from a timeline perspective, once you have a formula, it has to go through a robust round of testing. The AMP TM21442 testing alone takes minimum 6 months once it goes into test. But Neil and I share the mindset of whenever we're bringing a new product to market, we want to break the product. We want to test it to such an extreme that we know its limitations. And what we found interesting about the HeatFlex Ace is that we couldn't break it under normal testing circumstances. We actually had to take it above and beyond what even the standardized test method calls for to find its break point. So when you add all that together, it was years in the making of getting this testing database completed to find everywhere that it fits, because it's much wider than we anticipated.
So let's talk about the finished product, which won one of the 2025 MP Corrosion Innovation of the Year awards. What's unique about the technology, and what are the types of projects and or assets that it's used on? Just take us through how this is being used out in the field right now.
Well, from a product line, I guess, because the award was won for CUI mitigation, and there's a product line behind that rather than just a single product. We have a full gamut. If you look at the SP198 standard or the guidelines, the AMP SP198, there's certain sections regarding to temperature limitations and surface preference limitations, and there's certain chemistries which are actually assigned to those. So we have a full spread of the chemistries. So we start off with, we still have epoxy phenolics, but we have them pigmented with micaceous iron oxide, which gives us an advantage over traditional epoxy phenolics because they give a reinforcing, they give higher temperature stability, chemical stability, and they actually give better CUI performance. We then move from the epoxy phenolics to the modified epoxies, where the HeatFlex Ace sits, the HeatFlex 750 sits, and this is much higher solids, and that's why we did that. It's much higher solids, it's much higher performance, even than the epoxy phenolics. So we've modified epoxy chemistry to outperform epoxy phenolics. So that's where that one sat. Then we moved to the HeatFlex Ace, and that was a complete change. As I mentioned before, that was a stripped back chemistry, looking at our linings systems, taking the best that we've got in our lining systems, and then producing something which has the high temperature resistance, the immersion resistance, and the corrosion resistance. Just like Kristen said, it's not just about CUI, it's about the whole sort of area where these products have to live. But that's not all. We also have a much higher temperature technology, So those technologies will move around now about 450 Fahrenheit, but we go all the way up to 1200 Fahrenheit. We have an inorganic, what we call an inorganic multipolymeric matrix. Said that online, great. And basically that will go up to 1200 degrees Fahrenheit and work as a CUI coating. So that's how we actually spread that out. So again, filling the gaps that we needed to fill.
And then what's the feedback that you all have heard from users? I'm sure with this actually being applied out in the field, you've heard a little bit. What are they saying as far as its performance and what it's like to work with?
Feedback so far has been great. It's been on the market just shy of 3 years now, so it's definitely gained traction. It's ease of application. So for the contractors, it's very clean and easy to spray. The beauty of the HeatFlex Ace is it can be applied in a single coat, provide the same level of corrosion and CUI protection than most other systems that require two. So your throughput speed and your return to service is significantly improved. Overall, it's been the ease of application that we keep hearing back. And as soon as a shop or a contractor gets their hands on it, it's typically very quickly that we're like, we get the feedback. We like this a lot. We're going to be using this more often.
Well, and then to follow up to that, obviously, a coating is only as good as how it's applied out in the field. What are the ways that you all make yourselves available to applicators so that they can use Sherwin as a resource? What are the, I guess, the methods that you all use to stay in communication with applicators to make sure that it's getting applied to the specifications that it's supposed to be and using the proper tools and equipment?
So our team is hands-on from infancy stage. Our R&D team, they're in the field working with these applicators and their groups, fine-tuning as we're in the development phase. Once we launch a project or a product, we have our technical service teams that are trained in every product, hands-on. They can go troubleshoot. They can provide training to contractors if it's a new technology for them to spray out, all the way down to the local sales reps. They are all trained in all of these materials. They get time behind the gun, as we say, spraying the materials themselves. So they know the nuances of these. So every person within our internal Sherwin stakeholder chain has direct experience with these products to provide that aid and support, whether you're an operator creating a specification, an engineering firm who's trying to build a new facility, or you're the contractor physically doing the work in the field or in a shop.
Just to add to that, on top of that, you have the SME structure as well. The SME structure can be rolled in if the client has a particular pain point that he doesn't know the solution to. So people like myself, Kristen, there's a few other guys, and basically we'll solve their pain points for them. And it's usually from a new technology platform. Even to the point, and we've done this a few times with some of the bigger clients, that if we don't have a product on the shelf, we will actually develop a product with them, yeah, to solve their pain. So it's a really unique set of structure that we have in Sherwin-Williams to meet our clients' needs.
Let's talk about the future of this line because I know at Sherwin-Williams, innovation never stops. So, in terms of the next few years, are there any enhancements, expansions, new adaptations? What do you think this is going to look like the next few years for HeatFlex CUI mitigation coatings, or I guess other areas within the HeatFlex line?
So as you mentioned, we never pull our foot off the accelerator, so to speak. So even when these products in the HeatFlex mitigation line were being launched, we've already got a next generation that we're thinking about. We're developing technology behind. Earlier this year in March, we launched our HeatFlex AEB, Advanced Energy Barrier, which is a companion system to the mitigation line. This is what we're calling our elimination line. It is a thermal insulative material that goes on, sprays on like a coating, but it is in fact an insulation. The key here with that is being able to eliminate that air gap, which is typically where the corrosion zone occurs. You eliminate the air gap, you reduce the ability for water to permeate through the system, and you're able to essentially eliminate that corrosion under insulation. Everything is visible. You're not having to strip insulation, metal jacketing to inspect it. So that was launched earlier this year as the companion to the mitigation line. And we've got additional technology up our sleeve that we're working on for the future.
Really good insight from Kristen Leonard and Neil Wiles of Sherwin-Williams Protective and Marine. We're talking about the HeatFlex line. or the CUI mitigation line within HeatFlex, which is one of the winners of our 2025 MP Corrosion Innovation of the Year Awards. I want to thank both of you again for taking the time today. For anyone listening that might want to learn more about the CUI mitigation line within HeatFlex, what are the ways that they can do that? I'm assuming it's as simple as going to the Sherwin-Williams website or the Sherwin-Williams pages on social media. But just, Kristen, take this opportunity to sort of plug what you would like to plug to point our listeners in the right direction.
Absolutely. So you can contact myself or any of our team members, but you can also go to protective.sherwin.com, take you directly to our Protective and Marine site. We have it broken down by all of our P&M segments, including energy and all the subsegments that fall under that. We also have our team members that are under manufacturing and processing, water, wastewater, high value infrastructure. LinkedIn, we are extremely active on there as well. And you'll see our team members in all of the AMP committees and the standards programs and all of the above. So you turn around, you're going to find someone from the SW team.
Good stuff. And Neil, any last words for our audience before we wrap up?
Just a couple. The whole thing about CUI is not going to go away. It's such an important thing for our clients. And this is why Sherwin-Williams is in such a great position, because we made the choice to invest heavily in both the mitigation and the elimination of CUI. It's not just about the generation of products, it's the training of people, it's the resourcing the labs will of equipment. And Sherwin-Williams is here to stay when it comes to CUI.
Absolutely. All right, we will leave it there. Great insight from our friends at Sherwin-Williams. As they mentioned, you can learn more about them at their company website, protective.sherwin.com, and they're active on pretty much all the major social media platforms. And with that, we're done for today. On behalf of AMP, I'm Ben Dubose, and if you want more resources from AMP or our publications within the association, just visit amp.org, coatingspromag.com, or materialsperformance.com. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with more new episodes.